This story begins when Beth arrives in a beautiful city in Croatia. It's her first time landing there, and she is ready to enjoy a full weekend with her best friend. As soon as she arrives, she hops into a taxi. The driver, a very kind man, mentions that they are heading to the Old Town part of the city. When they finally reach their destination, the driver lets her know they have arrived. Beth tries to get money out to pay for the ride, but the driver stops her. He explains that the service has already been paid for by the person meeting her hostess. So Beth, feeling very grateful, decides to give him a tip from her own money before getting out of the vehicle. At that exact moment, Kate, her best friend, appears. She welcomes her with a hug full of joy and excitement at seeing her after so long. They both celebrate, finally managing to reunite for this girls' getaway. Kate takes Beth to where they are staying. It is a very luxurious apartment that she rented through an app called Airbnb. She tells Beth that she has taken care of all the trip expenses, including the taxi she just took, thanks to the fact that she is using her ex-husband Jay's credit card. While they get comfortable and open a bottle of champagne to toast to their friendship and the trip, Beth decides to give her a special gift she brought, a necklace made of a black stone called onyx. Kate is very moved and grateful for the gesture. However, when she tries to put it around her neck, she accidentally drops the necklace. Even so, she quickly assures her that she loves the gift and adores her friend for being so thoughtful. As they get ready to go out, Beth confesses that she feels very exhausted and really wants to sleep, but Kate insists that they can't sleep. They have to make the most of the night because she has already made a dinner reservation. During this time, Beth video calls her husband Rob and their baby Aster to tell them how much she misses them. Then Kate appears, showing off her new clothes, which she bought on impulse to try to feel better and get over her separation. Before leaving the building, they cross paths with Sebastian, the landlord. He introduces himself politely and asks if everything is in order with the apartment. Once at the restaurant, Kate orders a very expensive bottle of champagne and several dozen oysters. Her intention is to max out Jay's money before he realizes it and cancels the credit cards. The conversation becomes more personal and intimate when Kate apologizes for not being there for Beth during her pregnancy. Beth reassures her that everything is fine between them. Kate confesses that she now feels ready and open to new romantic experiences. She then asks Beth how her marriage with Rob is going. Beth admits that things aren't going well. She reveals that they haven't been intimate in over a year and that their relationship has lost its excitement and spark. Hearing this, Kate suggests that perhaps divorce might be the solution if she isn't happy. Dinner comes to an abrupt halt when Kate's credit card is declined while trying to pay the bill. This confirms that Jay has discovered her spending and cut off her access to the funds. So Beth has to take care of the bill using cash. Despite this setback, they decide to continue the night and head to a nightclub. To get there, they use Zayn's taxi, the same driver who picked Beth up from the airport. During the drive, Zayn tells them a bit about his life. He mentions that he comes from Syria and that before arriving there, he used to work in search and rescue. Upon entering the club, Kate sees two men and decides they should sit with them. She ignores the fact that Beth doesn't want to, as Beth feels uncomfortable being a married woman. The men invite them to sit at their table and start drinking. Meanwhile, Kate insists that Beth needs to enjoy life again. She tells her that a night of fun could help get her out of her rut and assures her that her husband doesn't need to know anything. The night progresses with many drinks and music. Beth's memories begin to get blurry and confused until everything goes black and she blacks out. The next morning, Beth wakes up in the apartment with a splitting hangover headache. She has choppy, fragmented memories of the night before. She realizes that Kate is not in the house. She finds her friend's clothes thrown on the floor and, walking through the living room, discovers with horror that there are bloodstains and broken glass on the floor. Very worried, she calls her husband Rob to tell him that Kate has disappeared, but he doesn't make a big deal out of it. He suggests that Kate probably went out for a walk or left with someone, reminding Beth that Kate tends to act on impulse. Beth tries to get answers from Sebastian, the landlord, but he informs her, very annoyed, that parties are forbidden. He demands an extra payment because he saw two men enter the apartment the night before, although he says he doesn't know where Kate is. With no other options, Beth goes to the police station to report her friend missing, but the officer who attends to her, named Pavic, is dismissive and mocking. He insinuates that her friend simply went off to party with some men and tells her she must wait 24 hours before she can file a formal report. Desperate and feeling alone, Beth calls Zayn, the taxi driver. He comes to her aid and takes her back to the nightclub to investigate on their own. There, the bartender reveals that the men they were with are paid escorts. He explains that they usually go there to scam and deceive tourists and gives them their names, Matteo and Luca. Beth feels guilty and foolish realizing that Kate hired those men to cheer her up, but Zayn comforts her and promises to help find them. They manage to track down the escorts through social media, and Zayn sets a trap, asking to meet them in a secluded, lonely spot. When the men arrive and see Beth, they try to run away, but Zayn chases one of them down and catches him. The man confesses that they did go to the apartment with them. However, he claims they didn't hurt Kate. He admits they took advantage of a distracted moment to steal Kate's purse and phone, and then ran away. To avoid the police being called, the escort takes them to a pawn shop. There, they manage to recover the belongings stolen from Kate. With the purse and phone now in her possession, Beth returns to the police station. This time, she goes with a firmer, more determined attitude. Zayn asks her not to mention his name to the police because he is afraid of losing his visa if he gets involved in legal trouble. At the station, a female officer named Kovac takes her statement. Kovac scolds Officer Pavic for doing nothing earlier. The officer suggests it's possible Beth was drugged the night before. She orders a medical and toxicology exam to see what is in her blood, although the results will take a day to be ready. Back at the apartment, Beth calls Jay, Kate's ex-husband, to inform him of the situation. But he reacts very coldly. He is convinced this is just a stunt by Kate to get attention, mentioning past incidents where she disappeared just on a whim. To make matters worse, Sebastian informs Beth that her time in the apartment is up. He tells her she must vacate because new guests are arriving. As her only alternative, he offers her a small, dark room in the basement of his own house. While Beth tries to deal with all these problems, Zayn invites her to eat something so she can regain her strength. But just then, Rob, her husband, appears. He has traveled unexpectedly from London because he was worried by Beth's calls. Rob appears jealous and suspicious, seeing her with Zayn. He asks who this man is, which sparks an argument between the couple right in the middle of the street. Beth defends Zayn, explaining to her husband that he is the only person who has helped her look for Kate. Finally, Rob apologizes for his bad attitude and tries to comfort her. But the tension is broken abruptly when Beth receives a call from the police. They inform her that they have found a body in the sea. With her heart in her throat and extremely nervous, Beth goes to the morgue to identify the body. Through tears, she confirms that it is her best friend, Kate. Apparently, she drowned, although the police declare the death suspicious and say they must wait for the autopsy to determine if it was an accident or a homicide. Heartbroken after identifying Kate's body, Beth's situation becomes even darker and more difficult. The medical examiner confirms that the death was not an accident, but murder. The police inform her that due to the condition of the body and the circumstances of that night, they suspect there was physical violence before she fell into the water. Furthermore, the toxicology report reveals high levels of cocaine and ketamine in Kate's system. This leads the officers to interrogate Beth about drug use. Although Beth insists that they didn't take anything voluntarily, the results of her own toxicology screen also show traces of ketamine. This confirms her theory that their drinks were spiked at the bar without them noticing. However, the police seem to use this fact to discredit her testimony and judge both women's behavior. Before leaving the morgue, Beth asks for a moment alone to say goodbye to her friend. As she caresses Kate's face, she remembers that her phone uses facial recognition. So with a quick, trembling movement, she places the device in front of her friend's lifeless face to unlock it. Once she manages to access the phone's content, Beth starts scrolling through the call log and messages, looking for any clue the police might have missed. What she finds leaves her frozen. There are many calls and messages from a contact saved under the name Handyman. But when she opens the conversation, she recognizes the number and the profile picture. It's Rob, her own husband. Reading the messages in disbelief and horror, Beth discovers that Rob and Kate had been having an affair for months. The texts reveal that Kate wanted to end the secret relationship and tell Beth the truth, while Rob was trying to convince her to keep it a secret. Devastated by the double betrayal of her best friend and her husband, Beth feels her world completely collapse. At that moment, the officers enter to take her back. In a state of total shock, she drops the phone to the floor, shattering the screen. Back at the apartment, the police's attitude toward Beth changes drastically. Now that they know Kate had sex with multiple men that night and that there were arguments between the women, according to witnesses from the club, The officers begin to view Beth not as a victim, but as a prime suspect. They believe she discovered the affair and murdered Kate in a fit of jealousy and rage. As a precautionary measure, they confiscate her passport and forbid her from leaving the country until the situation is cleared up. Alone and feeling cornered, Beth calls Rob to confront him. At first, he tries to deny everything or downplay it, saying it was just a fling that meant nothing. But Beth, furious and hurt, screams that she has read the messages and knows the whole truth. Rob, realizing he can no longer lie, changes his tone to one of pleading. He asks her to come home so they can talk about it, but Beth reminds him that she can't leave Croatia because she is now a murder suspect, largely thanks to the motives he and Kate gave the police to suspect her. Shortly after, the police return to the apartment, but this time it isn't to ask questions, but to formally arrest Beth. They accuse her of hiring Zayn to kill Kate. During the interrogation, the detectives reveal that Zayn has ties to a dangerous Albanian criminal organization involved in human trafficking. They suggest that Beth used those connections to get rid of her friend. Beth, confused and terrified, denies knowing anything about Zayn's past. She insists he is just a kind taxi driver who tried to help her, but her words seem worthless against the circumstantial evidence the police present. However, because there is no direct physical evidence linking her to the crime, Beth is released temporarily, though the investigation remains open. Upon returning to Sebastian's house, Beth finds Zayn waiting for her inside her room. Since she was terrified by the things the police told her about him, she demands he explain immediately if everything they say about his alleged criminal life is true. Zayn, with great calm and honesty, explains that the police misunderstood his story. He tells her that to escape the war in Syria and arrive safely in Europe, he had to pay money to human traffickers, but clarifies that he is not part of that criminal organization. He was simply a desperate refugee looking to save his life. Beth, seeing the sincerity in his eyes and remembering how he has supported her this whole time without asking for anything in return, decides to believe him and trust him once again. Meanwhile, staying at Sebastian's house becomes increasingly unsettling and unpleasant. The landlord behaves strangely and wants to control everything, and Beth starts to notice details inside the room that make her nervous. Looking for a better internet signal, or perhaps looking for an excuse to investigate what is going on, Beth enters areas of the house where she shouldn't be. Her curiosity leads her to find a room that was locked, which turns out to be a studio filled with monitors and recording equipment. Turning on the screens, she realizes with disgust that Sebastian has installed hidden cameras in every room of the building, including the bathrooms and bedrooms, and records his tenants in their most intimate and private moments. Beth quickly searches for the video files from the date Kate went missing and manages to play the recordings from that terrible night. On the screen, she sees what actually happened. She sees Kate helping her get to bed while she was barely conscious, and then sees the two escorts stealing Kate's purse while she was distracted in the bathroom. But the most revealing part happens next. She sees Kate running out of the apartment, chasing the thieves, getting into a taxi, and later returning in a different vehicle, looking very shaken and nervous. Just as Beth is trying to copy the evidence or understand what she is seeing, Sebastian appears in the studio. He is furious to see that she discovered his perverted secret. He tries to justify his actions by saying he does it for security, but quickly becomes aggressive and tries to delete the videos to protect himself. A physical struggle ensues between the two. Beth fights with all her might and manages to push Sebastian, who falls and hits his head, stunned for a moment. Seizing the opportunity, Beth grabs the keys and escapes the house, taking the important information she just saw with her. Once outside and safe, she reunites with Zayn and tells him what she discovered in the videos. Kate returned that night in a car that wasn't a taxi. Together, they analyze the license plate or type of vehicle and decide to find the taxi driver who drove Kate during the first part of the night when she went out to chase the thieves. They manage to track down the taxi driver, who confirms that he drove a very upset blonde woman that night, but he didn't drop her off at a bar or a party, but at the police station to report the theft of her purse. This news hits Beth hard. She remembers perfectly that when she went to report Kate missing the next day, Officer Pavic told her there was no record of Kate having been there or filing a report. Connecting the dots, Beth realizes that Pavic lied. Replaying in her mind what she saw in Sebastian's recordings and seeing a patrol car pass by, Beth realized that the car Kate returned to the apartment in that night was Officer Pavich's personal vehicle. Panic invades her as she understands that the man in charge of investigating the case is in reality the one who was with Kate moments before her death. Before they can decide what to do with this information, they see Pavich's cars approaching dangerously toward them. The officer has found them. With no time to plan anything, Beth and Zayn are forced to run through the narrow streets of the city, trying to lose the corrupt cop who now knows they are close to uncovering the truth. The chase leads them to an abandoned building under construction, where Beth tries to hide while Zayn attempts to distract the pursuer. But Pavich, armed and determined to silence them forever, corners Beth, forcing her up to the rooftop in a desperate attempt to escape the man she now knows is her best friend's killer. On the rooftop of the building, Beth finds herself trapped in front of Officer Pavich. Beth, finally understanding the truth, confronts him and accuses him of murdering Kate because she rejected his sexual advances that night. She screams that he tried to be with her, and upon Kate's refusal, his wounded pride led him to violence. Pavich, furious at having been discovered, lunges at Beth to attack her, and they struggle violently at the edge of the building. During the desperate fight for survival, Pavich loses his balance and falls into the void, dying instantly upon impact with the ground. Shortly after, the scene shifts to the police station, where Officer Kovac meets with Beth to close the case. Kovac sincerely apologizes for doubting her and confirms that they were right about Pavich. The police found security footage showing Pavich taking Kate to the apartment after she reported the theft of her purse. The official theory is that the officer made an indecent proposal, and when Kate rejected him, he reacted with violence, hit her on the head, and then threw her body into the sea, believing she was dead or not caring about her fate. Kovac also reveals Pavich's dark history, explaining that he used to work in the anti-drug unit but was transferred to tourism because several women accused him of assault, though the charges were always dropped because he threatened them. Furthermore, the officer informs Beth that they have also arrested the escorts, Luca and Matteo, as they found ketamine in their possession and confirmed that their modus operandi consisted of drugging women to rob them, which explains why Kate and Beth had that substance in their bodies. With the case apparently solved and her name cleared, Beth receives her passport back and is free to return home. Beth says a very affectionate goodbye to Zayn, thanking him for being the only person who truly supported her and believed in her throughout the entire nightmare. Days later, the story shifts to London, where Beth attempts to resume her daily life with her daughter Aster and her husband Rob. It seems they are trying to mend their relationship and leave the traumatic events of Croatia behind them. On an ordinary morning, Beth needs to go out and ask Rob for the car keys. Rob distractedly tells her to look in the pocket of his jacket, which is hanging in the entryway. Beth reaches into her husband's coat pocket, searching for the keys, but her fingers brush against something small and hard that freezes her in her tracks. Pulling the object out, Beth discovers it is a black onyx bead, identical to the ones on the necklace she gave Kate at the beginning of their trip. A chill runs down her spine as she realizes the implication of this discovery. Rob could only have that bead if he had been physically with Kate in Croatia after Beth gave her the necklace. The certainty that Pavich wasn't the killer, but rather her own husband, hits her with devastating force. Keeping her composure to avoid alerting Rob, Beth makes an excuse that she needs to use the bathroom. Once inside with the door locked, she quickly dials Officer Kovac in Croatia. When the officer answers, Beth leaves the line open and hides the phone, bracing herself to get the confession she needs. She steps out of the bathroom and confronts Rob, telling him point blank that she knows he killed Kate. At first, Rob reacts with disbelief, thinking it's a joke or that she's delusional, arguing that he was in London taking care of Aster. However, Beth shows him the onyx bead she found in his pocket. Cornered by the physical evidence, Rob's lies crumble. He starts making excuses, claiming he can explain and that it was all an accident. Rob confesses that he flew to Croatia that night because he was terrified Kate would follow through on her threat to tell Beth about their affair. He explains that he waited outside the apartment, and when Kate appeared, they walked down to the pier to talk. According to his version, he just wanted to convince her not to destroy his family, but Kate insisted that he loved her and begged him to leave Beth because they weren't happy. Rob claims the argument escalated, that he was desperate and angry, and that he hit her, causing her to stumble and fall into the water, hitting her head. He insists over and over that it was a mistake, claiming he thought she was already dead when she fell, which is why he fled the scene. Rob begs Beth not to call the police, pleading with her to think of their daughter Aster. He argues that she doesn't deserve to grow up with her father in prison and points out that the case is already closed since they blame the dead cop. However, Beth looks at him with contempt and reveals the final piece of information that dismantles his accident defense. She tells him she read the autopsy report and that Kate didn't die from the blow to the head. She drowned. This means that when Rob left her in the water, she was still alive, and he abandoned her there to death, making him a cold-blooded killer. Realizing Beth won't cover for him, Rob shifts from begging to threatening. He demands she hand over her phone, suspecting she has been communicating with someone. Beth reveals that the police are already on their way because they heard everything. Rob lunges at her to attack, but Beth reacts quickly, striking him hard to incapacitate him before scooping up Aster. The movie ends with Beth walking out of the house with her baby, heading toward freedom and leaving behind the man who betrayed her in the worst way possible, as police sirens are heard approaching to arrest the true culprit.